Hello, it's me, and I'm going to go through the little people of the puzzle world, the 2x2 and all the 2x2 variants. So in my last unboxing, I did show some examples of some interesting 2x2 variations, and I wanted to kind of go through them to show how the two-layer solve variates from one type of puzzle to the next. So what I'm going to do first is just show you how I solve 2x2 puzzles and how they translate into, well, this guy, and this guy. Now, really, the larger layer versions are the ones that are the biggest challenges, but they're nice little puzzles. They're portable, easily taken with you, and still something of a challenge when you try to skew your perspective with that, because that's what modifications really try to do, is have you skew perspectives. So starting off with just a regular 2x2 scramble, and I'm going to just kind of demonstrate the motion. So you've got a two-layer puzzle. Now this is from a rhombic dodecahedron. Rhombic dodecahedron is a non-shape-shifted mod. So it doesn't shape-shift, it just retains its basic structure and can turn in various sundry ways, 90 degrees, and that's pretty good. Then of course we have the axis cube. The axis cube turns is when you take a hexagonal dipyramid, build it back up to a cube. This is, again, expertly made and very smooth moving, as you can see. Now what's interesting about these puzzles is just how well made they are. Now I do have other two-layer puzzles, as you've seen. There's the pyromorphinx, there's the hexagonal dipyramid, but I've demonstrated those before, so I wanted to do something new. There is yet another two-layer puzzle that I have not demonstrated, but I'm not going to demonstrate that yet. That's going to have a very special place in an upcoming video. Anyway, so this is an example of a scrambled axis 2x2 puzzle. Try to keep it more so it has that sort of jumbled up look. Then of course this fascinating one over here. This is the ghost cube 2x2. So you might think, well, it's not unlike any other 2x2. It just turns down the center here, but there's no other side to turn it unless you take it just off center, and then you can turn it. So we'll go ahead and demonstrate this solve. This can turn across here, but then I have to put it just off center and then start my scramble over here. I find the ghost puzzles obviously among the most challenging of all modifications to do, and I'm interested to see just how that translates into a 2x2. 2x2 solves are fairly straightforward once you get the perspective down, but even that could be challenging when it comes to a ghost 2x2. So here's a 2x2 scramble, and here they all are at its most rudimentary form of a scramble. Typical Rubik's Cube type scramble, all different colors but symmetric shape, translated to extra layers, and then with the axis cube and the ghost cube. So how shall we approach this? How shall we demonstrate it? So the way that I do 2x2 solves is getting aside and making sure that it makes sense with each corner. This is a corner only, no centers, no edges, only corners. So we'll start off with a green side. This comes up here, this comes over. You can see that these line up. Find the other green and red, put it in, which is right over here. And then RID it, which is among the only algorithms that you're going to need to know. There are faster ways of doing this, I understand, but this is just basic stuff. Now the other green comes over to here, same thing, RID. And there it is. Once you have the first layer, turn it upside down. What I do is I find one of the colors that are on the opposite side that's rotated up and just put it in where it's supposed to be. It could be this one, it could be this one, doesn't matter. Then I look at the other corners to see if any one of them is in right next to it. So I look at this isn't in, and this isn't in. So then I hold it over here with the one that's in on the right side and just do the other algorithm, which is a corner switching, swapping, twisty-turny algorithm, URUILI, URI, at some point I'm going to get two that are in, so you can see these are rotated up and they're in. Now I take a look at this. Is this where it's supposed to be? Yes, and so is this. So this is just RID, and then it's done. Now if it's not in other words, if these are swapped, then I just do an adjacent corner swap algorithm to get that back, which is 2RU, 2RUI, 2R, turn here, 2RUI, 2RU, 2R, and then turn back. In this case I swapped it out, so this This was just to demonstrate that. But you can see that these two are on the wrong side. Turn it here. So a very basic solve. Now I can RIDARD this, RIDARD. Turn this over here. And there it is. So there's your 2x2 solve. All right, so let's translate this to the rhombic dodecahedron solve. All of these are corners and they should be treated as such. We see these two are already in, so I'll go to the next one. If they weren't, I just put them in like so. So the next one is going to have to be a blue one. Blue and, well, we don't know, but it's the only other blue one that's left, which is right over here. So basically RIDIRD it. And you can do an extended version of it like this, and up it goes. So this is in silver. I find the other silver, which appears to be right here. So this is going to make its way up as well. Turn, and turn. So this is good. So this whole side is now solved. Ignore these colors as of yet. So just like the previous one, I turn it upside down and try to correlate it. Now, how do I do that? Well, here's a blue over here, so I know that this is where it's supposed to be here. It's not rotated correctly, but it's where it's supposed to be. Which one is supposed to be here? Well, this is actually where it's supposed to be also, because you can see the two pinks here. So this white will come up to here, and this will come up, and this will come down to here when it rotates. How about this one? Is this where it's supposed to be? Yep, because we got the blue over here, and this is also where it's supposed to be. So this happens to be exactly right. Now, if not, I'd have to do an adjacent edge swap. So this one is a lot easier to see for a mod because you can more easily visualize it since you don't have the shape shifting. So since this is the only one that's correct, I RIDIRD these back into submission. RIDIRD, RIDIRD. This is good. Move it to the side, and now I do this one until the silver is lined up. RIDIRD. RIDIRD. Move it again here, and now just do it again until this is lined up to here. RIDIRD, RIDIRD, and we're actually done. We just have to move this into place, and that's it. 2-layer solve. So this one, fairly easy, fairly straightforward. This one, a little bit more size to deal with, but really not much of a difference. I can't even say that it was a 2-layer supercube because, well, there's no such thing as a 2-layer supercube. By definition, every piece has a specific orientation in a specific place. So this really wasn't too much of a difference. But now we can try to translate it to this guy and see if it becomes more of a challenge. So here's the red over here. What I'm going to want to find is a piece that fits in nicely with this, which is going to be red and green. So it's going to be the large green piece, I think, over here, and move it in here. So here's green and red, so these two fit together. So it's really just two colors. There's no top portion, just these. So now what comes next? Well, what's going to come next probably is a color that has a yellow and finishing up the green, which looks like it's one of these corner pieces here. So we're going to move this up and see what it does. All right, so we have to RIDIRD it. So you can see that even though the technique is the same, I have to skew my perspective here, and up we go. So this is in. So now we're good. Now we're looking for another piece which is almost pure yellow, which seems to be this. So we're going to RIDIRD this one. RIDIR. So this is it. This is our first side over here. So now we follow suit and do it exactly the same way. Turn it upside down, and now how do we find one that's where it's supposed to be? And this is where the challenge comes from. This is where we actually have to start thinking a little bit. Well, here's blue over here, so perhaps it's this one. Because when I see this little blue, it probably lines up with this big blue over here. So this is correct. I can see this lines up nicely, so this is correct. Okay, well, what else? Well, this is a situation where I see a little white, which I guess has to line up with the big white, just like little green lines up with big green over here. So if we can imagine that this is correct and this is correct, this red one, triangle, must go over here. So this is a situation where these need to be swapped. So keeping our perspective, we're going to go ahead and try to swap these. So what we need to do then is we need to do an adjacent corner swap, keeping our perspective to our U, to our UI, to R, turn the puzzle, to R, UI, to R, U, to R, and then turn it back. So what we have is these are in, everything should be in, it just has to be turned in the right orientation. So we RIDI RD it, not forgetting our perspective here. We'll go RIDI RD, RIDI RD. We can see this is in, turn this, and same thing. RIDI RD, RIDI R. D, RIDI RD, RIDI, and done. So that was pretty good. That was pretty fun. They took the two-layer solve, did a shape mod that didn't shapeshift, so really the level of difficulty was about the same. This took a little bit more looking, took a little bit more observation, so that was pretty good in terms of complexity, even though the solve really wasn't different at all in terms of the strategy. Now, why not try it with the most difficult of all types of mods, which are the ghost puzzles, the ghost cubes? How does this strategy translate with this? So however shall we do it? Well, the good thing about two-layer mods is it doesn't take much to line things up, even if you just do it by random, just scramble it a little bit more. So I don't know if this likely has not been shown on YouTube before, but I wanted to demonstrate the workmanship with this. So it's a matter of finding which edges are going to be lined up with each other. The thing about ghost puzzles is you have to do it in a vacuum. You have to do it alone in the dark, so to speak. So even my sides, I don't know if they're going to orient themselves specifically. I know that two corners can, but I don't know if I'm going to get the right four. I see a line over here and a line over here. I'm going to assume that they line up with each other. No pun intended. So I don't like to memorize it, especially with the two-layer puzzles, because it'll distract from the difficulty. From the challenge, so turn, and up. So as you can see, this lines up pretty well. So what's supposed to go over here? Well, we'll see if anything even goes here. Does this line up? Not really. But let's see if I can find two other corners that do, even almost by random. Well, let's see. Maybe it becomes a triangle. Nope, doesn't become a triangle. So perhaps something that finishes this part. So I'm thinking maybe this guy over here. Well, this clicks into place pretty nicely. So I've got this over here, which appears to be a side. So I have to find the one that fits in with this. Oh, here's something over here too. So these two fit together. I can move them out of the way. So I've got a couple things to choose from. I'm just wondering how they correlate here. I'm doing some extraneous motions just to kind of show this puzzle. But in any case, what comes into over here? Well, not any of these two. It must be one of these guys over here. So it's RIDI. Thing about this ghost puzzle is it loves to move. No, that's not it. DI. R, D, R, I, D, I, R, D. Well, nothing there. It's probably something that's going to be fairly small, so maybe this guy over here. And turn. Nope, that doesn't look good. Turn. Yeah, so right now I'm just trying to make things kind of makes sense here. No, not this one. These two seem to fit nicely. Do they belong on the bottom side here? Well, if these two fit together, then some of these guys might. Okay, Still trying to find something to come into this side here. Aha! So this appears to be a side over here. So now I just line these guys up. Now where's it supposed to be? Well, it's hard to say because I can't correlate this side with what's down here. Can't correlate those. So how am I going to do that? I have to correlate them with each other and hope that they match here eventually. So what could go with what? Well, I've got a pyramid over here. Is there something that completes that or lines up with it? Maybe this pyramid. So I'm not sure if this does correlate, but I'm going to turn this around until I bring it in over here. R-I, D-I, R, D, R-I, D-I, R, D, and then once more, one more turn should show me. And it's going to get easy to get lost with this, so I gotta be careful. R, D. Okay, so it's clear this one doesn't belong with this, but it belongs with this. So these two are correct as is. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this back and do it again until this bottom side is finished, keeping this where it is. R-I, D-I, R, D. And I'm just doing this really until this is back. Okay, so these are in. Now I just have to decide these two here. Well, let's move this to where it's not skewed. So this is fine over here. And now I have to decide what I'm going to do about these guys here. Well, I could try to RIDIRD this and see what happens. Does it fit with this guy or not? Well, I think I already did that and found that it didn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a swap with this. Again, it's all just by theory. So 2R U, 2R UI, 2R, turn it here, 2R UI, 2R U, 2R. Okay? Now let's see if this will bring this over to here. R-I, D-I, R, D, R-I, D-I, R, D. Aha! It works. So now this one should come in just fine. R-I, D-I, R, D, R-I, D-I, R, D, almost, I think. And one more, even though it looks completely scrambled still, with a little faith, we see this is in, and then we turn it, and there it is. So yes, this does confirm my suspicion that even though it's just a two-layer puzzle, it is still very challenging. Among the more challenging of mods, just because it's a ghost puzzle. It's a ghost cube. Set these up here. Now, you may ask, why would someone who has solved giants, towers, and creations of mind-numbing complexity invest in puzzles such as these, which by comparison seem so basic, simple, and mundane in its solve? Why bother with the two-layer versions that seem to be but shadows of the respective higher-order versions? The reason that I obtain the two-layer versions is the same reason that I gather the one-layer versions. It's not just the complexity or the challenge of a puzzle that I covet, but also the company it keeps. The essence of a collection is in the endeavor to see it complete. With this goal in mind, join me in one more week as I share with you the collection that I gathered. In 5 parts over 5 days, I will reveal all that I have and how it came to be. Thanks for watching.